Awesome. Cool. So, yeah, welcome to the webinar. I can't see the chat live, but we have somebody else monitoring it, and I'll make sure to answer your guys' questions at the end if you do have any. Oh, wait, can I switch this to be me? That would be good. There we go. So, yeah, we're going to kind of talk about the fundamentals of influencer marketing here, and particularly performance influencer stuff, which is not typically how people kick things off. It's usually very brand awareness oriented. So I hope you guys like it. And yeah, let's jump into it. The agenda is pretty much to talk about how to structure these magical performance influencer campaigns, and then how to pick influencers, and finally Q&A. The whole webinar will take maybe, I don't know, 25 minutes max. Oh, we got people that want in. Yanya, welcome. Yeah, so that magical campaign structure is basically set up like this. We identify a target geography, select influencers for outreach, pay per conversion, and experiment on that process. Sorry about that. I'll stop letting people in here in a second. Next time I need backup. Yeah. So then the juicy bits, identifying a target geography. So there's a few things. Typically we call this a guinea pig city. So we take a city that we want to get some sort of attention saturation in, where we're going to kick off the campaign. You want it to be super narrow and reasoned. So a city is usually a good start. And when I say reasoned, what I mean is that, for example, it's a place you can ship to inexpensively, or a place that you, for example, have support that lines up with the time zone, or yeah, these kind of practical things. Picking a target geography isn't a super crazy complicated step, but it does tend to be where a lot of people get stuck. Yeah, when you do that, it allows you to achieve that kind of attention saturation, where you might be able to catch people twice in the same campaign, and that'll give you a little bit of overlap in appearing everywhere, so to say. And then it's about finding influencers that reach your audience really effectively. We're going to dive more into this and how you can use Modash to help make this super easy. But one point that I wanted to mention now is that because people get confused on this one quite often, the influencers you pick should pretty much, the only criteria you're looking for is an overlap that's one-to-one between your ideal customer and the influencer's audience. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about it later, but yeah, the perfect customer, as I have written here, is in your target geography and is in a perfect match with your ideal customer. A lot of times people get mixed up and try to think about a whole bunch of things at one time, but those are the two main criteria that you want to pick. And the big one, this is kind of the foundation of these performance campaigns, and it's paying per conversion. This is super useful for small and medium businesses, and frankly, if you're not the size of Coca-Cola, for example, or some huge company, then this is the best way to kick off influencer marketing campaigns. The only really good reason not to do this is because you're too scared to, like, if you're just too scared to do it, then this is what I hear a lot, or that you are that big that it no longer matters to you how people find you or buy your thing, and you just want to be in front of them. Those are the only two reasons you would not do a pay-per-conversion model. The why behind that is because this is what allows you not to have to make any upfront investment. So you don't have to pay until your influencer has gotten you a conversion, and therefore you're making money. And you always make it within the margin of the product that you sell. It also scales extremely well. We'll talk a little bit more about that. You eliminate the risk of a failed post. So if you invest a bunch of time into paying per post for your influencers, and then you spend the money up front to get them to post, and then you fail, or the post fails to kind of hit your goal, then you're left with nothing and a failed investment. But in this sense, you onboard the influencer and you're ready to go. They only get paid when they bring results. It's also extremely easy to measure, so you don't need to sorry about that, got off track there. It's extremely easy to measure because you're not trying to do guesswork like measuring based off engagement rate or something like this. You can look specifically at an influencer or a piece of content and see this is how many people they can convert, not how many impressions they get or how many comments they got or whatever, but a metric that's really tied to your business goals at the end of the day. And because it's easier to measure, it gives you more things to optimize on and more control over the future of your campaigns. I gotta stop letting people in. I don't want to interrupt you guys too much. Yeah, and then experimenting, optimizing, and repeating the process. So this is a little bit into the scale. So the reason that we want to do the paid per conversion is because it scales so well and gives us the ability to optimize over time. So when you're not outreaching and asking for individual posts, you're keeping them in an ongoing ambassador program, as we call it. So every month, if every month for a year you recruited, or every week for a year rather, you recruited, say, 2 influencers only, by the end of the year, you have 100 people posting for you every month. So instead of reaching out to an individual influencer, negotiating a price for a post, having a post that may go up fail, you have an ongoing campaign where you only pay per conversion. You have these long-term relationships, and you say, okay, Mr. Influencer, you get, we're going to pay you $5, let's say, off of our product every time you sell one. And then you add another Mrs. Influencer, another Mr. Influencer, and suddenly a really small team can manage a whole bunch of relationships because they compound over time. So week after week, month after month, year after year, you have these this ambassador pool piling up and driving more conversions. Anything else on that I wanted to mention? Yeah, basically it saves you a ton of time and energy when you do these ongoing campaigns, and then gives you things to experiment and optimize with. You really want to keep this simple too, tracking your successes and failures, and repeating the process until your influencer campaign is just way too big to handle. We're going to talk about some more advanced tactics for relationship management, for recruiting influencers inbound and this kind of thing, in the next webinar, which you'll be able to find wherever you found this one, you'll find the next one as well. So keep up to date there. Yeah, so now let's jump a little bit more into specifically how to find influencers. Now that we understand the workflow, I am going to check for questions afterwards. So fill up the chat with questions if you have them. And yeah, we'll jump to finding influencers specifically with Modash, and then we'll do Q&A. And I have a few questions from your invites prepared as well. So let's leave this and go to Google. Oh, I'm in Google. Here we go. And go to modash.io. And hope that I have logged in with an account that I can easily access what I need to access. Yeah, perfect. So this is Modash. As you can see, this is a tool to find influencers really easily. We worked really hard to build something awesome for you. But I'm not going to give you too much of a sales pitch today. I'm just going to show you how a tool like this can help you identify influencers. And even if you don't use it, the criteria that you need to consider when looking for people. So I mentioned the guinea pig geography in the beginning, and I stand by that stance. Basically, when you're filtering down from a huge list of influencers, you want to start with, okay, how big is the following? So let's say in this case for our campaign, we're a smaller company, maybe Shopify Shop, and we don't want to go too crazy with the number of followers because we're a little intimidated maybe. Then we can do 15 to 25,000. And then the next thing that matters a lot is where that guinea pig city is. So in our case, we're going to take Tallinn here in Estonia, and we're just going to start our search like that. It's plain and simple, nothing too complicated. So we have 59 influencers here. So that's already really narrowed down our number of results that we want to go through. So then we can start to take a look at other metrics. So things like where the audience is specifically. So in this case, we have a lot of density in Estonia. Remember, what we're looking for is mostly in that geography and in our target market. This particular influencer has a lot of female followers. So if our product is geared more towards females, or maybe that's what this campaign, the recommended content or something is going to be geared towards females, then this is something that might be really important. Follower credibility is pretty good. This number only really matters when considering your time investment in reaching out to this person. So a lot of people just say, okay, there's some fake followers, we don't work with that person, but that's not really a practical way to look at it. What you want to do is say, okay, most of these followers are in my geography, most of these followers are in my target demographic, and most of these followers are real, and there's enough followers that the reach is good for me to start with. So that's how I would go about picking those. Then finally, and only after those things make sense, would I look at the content. And typically I'm just looking to see, does it seem relatively like appropriate, I guess you could say. Is this family friendly, or is there any red flags here in that might indicate that I don't want to work with this particular person? So in this case, this profile looks pretty family friendly. Most of the audience is in Tallinn, almost all of it in the country that Tallinn's located in, Estonia, and the content looks extremely family friendly. So this might be a good person to reach out to. Where people get stuck here is they start with the content or with the topic idea in their head. So they start with, okay, I sell lamps, so I need to find lamp influencers on Instagram. This is like a real request that I've gotten before is how many lamp influencers do you have? How many battery influencers do you have? How many whatever? Really narrow niches. And the truth is that those categories we can't really put people in categories like that because they talk about many different things. If you found someone on Instagram who only talks about lamps, that would be an extremely boring profile and probably not doing so well. But we could find people, for example, if we sell lamps in Chicago, we could find people in Chicago speaking about topics like home decor, probably have more female trending audiences, and those are the kind of things we want to look at and care about. And you can use Modash to do that, as you saw, super easily. And this works anywhere in the world. So if we try our Chicago example, just input Chicago, hit our button, and probably we have quite a few. So in this case, we have 500 influencers. Maybe we want to narrow it down a little bit more. So we'd get more specific about our demo and say 18, maybe we want a little bit younger audiences and mostly female, because our product leans that way. And we start to get it a little bit more narrow. Yeah, and those are kind of the things you want to care about. We have some stuff in the help desk as well here about using filters, which also kind of explains the logic that I just explained, but it's sometimes easier to read than listen to me speak really fast about. But yeah, this is how you should go about selecting influencers. So then jumping back to our fancy deck here. So, yeah, so that's how we find influencers and choose them wisely. There. So now we'll jump to Q&A. Maybe I'll quickly check and see if there's any in the chat here. Ooh, this is fancy. How does this work? I don't know. Huh. I have no idea how this works. Okay. I'm going to investigate later. As you can see, I'm very prepared. Let's take a look at the Q&A that I prepared beforehand. So one question that I get a lot when I explain this format to people in consultation calls or to our user base at Modash is, what if the influencer I reach out to only accepts pay per post campaigns? So what if they're only, hey, I only accept if you pay me $100 per post? I get this one a lot, and it stops people from making the step to even offer the revenue share model that I mentioned before, the pay per conversion model. And the analogy that I came up with the other day was, if you were looking for someone to walk your dog and you had 10 applicants and all of them said, I'll pet your dog, but what you needed was someone to walk your dog, you wouldn't accept the applicants that said they pet your dog, right? You'd keep looking until you find the ones that will do the task you need them to do. And that's the same case here. So there will be influencers who say, no, I only do pay per post, and that's fine. You can move along and find the next best person for you. And there is thousands and thousands of influencers out there. And most of them are really eager to work on these kind of campaigns because they're long-term. That means the influencer can pay their rent every month and has a guaranteed stream of income. And yeah, they tend to like working with the same people over time. It's more fun than constantly posting random products and this kind of thing. And audiences tend to like it too. So the answer to this question, what if the influencer I reach out to only accepts pay per post, is to move on to the next influencer. Joniel, or Joniel, I hope I got your name right there, one way or the other, asked, how can I find more influencers, specifically athletes, was part of his question. So you can use Modash to do those kind of things. In finding influencers, there's a few tactics that people use. A tool like ours, our tool has been specifically designed for this need. So I'm not just trying to sales pitch you here, but we do believe that it's important to find people who speak specifically to your target audience, and in this case, have some aspect of content that's related to your topic. So you mentioned athletes. I want to just reiterate the note that you shouldn't start with, I need athlete influencers. It should be, I need to find influencers who speak to my target audience. Hopefully, or maybe it would be interesting if they're also athletes. Yeah, and then focus on local geographies. Other things you can do besides use our tool are try to put hashtags, this kind of stuff, locations, especially in Instagram, or you can combine kind of hashtags and location in a Google search. So you could do like site, Instagram, hashtag athlete, hashtag Estonia, or hashtag Canada, or Toronto, whatever guinea pig geography you choose. But I highly recommend using a tool like ours. Other thing you can do is get influencers who are in your program to recommend other people, or kind of create almost like a pyramid scheme type thing I've seen people do, which doesn't sound so good maybe, but it does work. So you can have influencers, you can even pay influencers a small bit of cash for converting people to your program. I don't really like this because I prefer to vet the influencers I work with and understand the audiences and what's happening before they get in the program. So yeah, but there's a few ways that you can find more influencers. And in the next webinar, we're going to talk more about those sort of next stage tactics as well. The no investment upfront bit, I'm curious about. I have a Shopify store. This question caught my attention. Thank you, Manu, for asking, because I wanted to bring up the topic of margin. So in the case of Shopify shops, a lot of times you don't have a big margin. So I wanted to just make a really simple suggestion to any Shopify shop owners listening, which is increase your prices. It might sound crazy. A lot of people think it's crazy. I tend to kind of negotiate with our users that just raise your prices a little bit and see what happens. And usually they find either there's no change, or maybe people even buy more because their perception is different or whatever. But what you can do is raise your prices a little bit if your margin is really low, or you can, and then you can give like a coupon code. This is something I forgot to talk about actually, which is tracking the success. You want to use coupon codes to do that. So give each influencer a custom coupon code, and that's how you track the conversions. I'm sorry I didn't mention this before. Yeah, so then with that coupon code that provides maybe 10% discount, if you don't have enough margin on your product that you can afford to give away 10% of the payment for the product, then just raise your prices 10% and give a 10% discount, or however you might be able to work it out in this cost per conversion model. Don't be afraid to raise your prices. Thanks for the question, Manu, or for the note. Can you show how deep I can search for the interests? Yeah, Manu, let's jump back to Modash then, Manu, and we can take a quick tour. So so yeah, basically how interest searching works here is pretty in depth. So let's say here we have our Chicago search from before. Let's maybe remove female just because we don't want too many filters, and we take a look at someone mentioned athletes. So let's look at athletics or sports in this case. So we have quite a few based on sports, but let's try maybe activewear is a related topic. And yeah, let's start from there. And we run our search. We have 195 influencers, so we can see in searching for interests. So this looks like some sort of radiocaster or something like that. And we can see some of the topics. They're not super relevant to us in this case. I'm sure that if we get a further breakdown, we'd see why. What we could do is sort by sports. And here we go. So Kelly Krull, let's see what Kelly has to say here. So mostly in the United States, and we can see the interest group. So audience interests are a lot to do with sports. We can see her most popular content looks like it's at a football stadium. Yeah, so this looks pretty sports related. And then if we took a look at the full report, we'd probably see, yeah, so also her interests, the influencer interests particular included activewear, which might be related to sports in this case, audience interests, sports, brand affinities include NFL, NBA. So we can kind of see where that would come from. And then if we're impressed with kind of the topics and interests of Kelly here, then we can reset our filters, input her username in this little column here. And we should, if there is some, get some lookalikes. Yeah, so we can see almost 25,000 similar lookalikes. And that allows us to really quickly grab more people who have similar interest groups, talk about similar topics, brands, this kind of thing. And we could narrow that down with more filters if we want to. Yeah, but that's kind of how interests work and how you can check them out in Modash and that sort of thing. But I really want to reiterate the fact, I can't say it enough, that the most important criteria is that the influencer speaks to your target audience, not that they're really into lamps or sports or whatever. It is good to have that combination, but audience first, topic second for sure. One thing I wanted to mention was that it is possible to book a one-on-one call with me through this link that you'll see here, book a call. If you access my Calendly, you'll see one-on-one meeting slots. We can do private consultations and I can give you more tips specific to your business, your company, Shopify shop, whatever you're doing. If you're watching this in retrospect after the webinar, then this link still works, hopefully. Check it out and book a meeting with me. You can also just write to me, Avery@modash.io. For you guys who are in the webinar, I wanted to add that you can get a discount on Modash. Just write me an intercom in the platform. So there's a chat support bubble. Just write me via the chat support bubble or send me an email to Avery@modash.io and we'll hook you up with some sort of discount offer. Just ping me there and let me know that you're interested. Thanks so much for the time, guys, and wishing you well from Tallinn.